Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Before we begin, the Grandel Wrestling Podcast would like to salute our partners who make all this possible. First, the St. Louis Kings of the Calzone, sauce on the side in the Grove. You can't go wrong with the Pancho Villa or one of their dessert calzones. There is an art to this dish, and there is one master artist of the calzone, sauce on the side. Dine in, carry out, or delivery. We'd also like to welcome the newest member of our family, the Southwest Diner. Serving up diner staples and foods of the American Southwest, Southwest Diner has been a favorite of locals and visitors alike since 2012. If you're into the classics, you can't go wrong with the biscuits and homemade sausage gravy. You like spice? Dig into Jonathan's famous fiery scramble. They also do an excellent smash burger. You gotta check it out. The crispy edges are amazing. Now offering delivery, curbside pickup, and a brand spanking new patio. There are plenty of safe and enjoyable ways to get your Southwest Diner fix. And now, on with the show. Hey there, wrestling fans, and welcome back to the Grandel Wrestling Podcast. Today on the show, we have the one and only Warhorse. Jake, welcome to the show.
That's me, and that's probably freaking people out that I'm talking in my normal voice.
Yeah, I don't like it, actually.
Yeah, most people don't.
Where's the war paint, man? I thought you were coming in the war paint.
I was going to, but then you guys said I didn't need it, and then I walked in, and there's 5 cameras in here.
Oh, well,
That's all right.
We'll have to have a discussion.
That's why I got to keep the stinger shades on.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
Well, Jake, you and I have gone back your entire career. Almost.
all 10 years.
Yeah, and we even went to the same high school.
Did we?
Lindbergh High, man, right?
I did not know you were an alum.
Lindbergh 06.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I graduated 2011.
Oh, well, a little bit difference.
Little.
So your career started out in St. Louis. I mean, I saw videos of you working out at the Dynamo Pro Dojo, mixing it up with guys like Alex Rudolph and folks like that. And the first time I ever saw you, I have to bring this up because we have similar roots.
Okay.
It was at a Southern Illinois Championship Wrestling show where the great Larry Matizik was booking the cards back then. Yes, the voice of wrestling at the Chase. What an awesome experience it was working with him, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah. I miss Larry a lot because I didn't understand how much he knew at the time. So I didn't have a lot of questions for him because I was only like a year in. But now I wish I could ask him so many things about so many people and all the territory booking and things like that because I've gotten a much deeper appreciation for it now.
Right.
So I feel like it sucks whenever people like him pass or people like Billy Robinson or people that just, they're almost gatekeepers in a way because so much knowledge is lost, even the stuff that they don't write down.
Right.
And it sucks. But yeah, I was fortunate to work for him first 7 or 8 months of my career, I believe, off and on. So
now, it was a mixed bag because you were just starting out. You wrestled under your name, Jake Parnell, back then. And Gentleman
Awful.
Jake Parnell, actually.
it was awful.
You had what was it, like a top hat and cane, right?
I didn't have a cane. I couldn't afford the cane. I had the top hat.
It was, maybe it was was it like a vest?
I had a tailcoat.
Tailcoat, yeah.
I had a tailcoat. I had gloves that I never wanted to wear, and I was way too shy to, sell merch. So I had, 15 top hats that I bought and autographed and never sold because I was too afraid to go to the merch table.
Was that Larry's idea?
Yeah, it was Larry's idea. So the match you're talking about was my 4th match ever, and
Back in 2013.
yes, and Jake Durden, who was one of my very good friends at the time, I still love him to death, but his shoot name is Brad Fox. Well, he went to Japan, and he had a big hand in training me at that point in time. He went to Noah, and while he was gone, they had me wrestle as the gentleman Brad Fox as a funny joke, because if you know anything about Jake Durden, he's anything but a gentleman. And I started thinking about it and kind of thought, oh man, maybe I could just be the gentleman Jake Parnell and I could be like a rich snooty kid or something and wear a top hat. And that's about as far as it went, was I had a top hat on.
Being a young kid with this gimmick of the gentleman, did you have any kind of inner animosity toward management for something like that?
What do you mean?
Like, did you go along with the gentleman, or did you want to do something else?
I definitely wanted to do something else. I hated it, but it was also my own idea, and I didn't have any other ideas at the time.
Right.
But it was like, I can try to make something out of this, but I really don't want to. And then eventually I ditched it, and I think it was Alex Rudolph, or now he's Alex Herzog. He suggested that I be his Viking in training, but then whenever we did that, I started going nuts and having a lot of fun doing that, just acting crazy and like putting chairs in my mouth and walking around and things like that. That he was like, oh no, we don't have to do the Viking in training thing. You'll just be the little Viking. And then it was me, him, and this other guy, Frank Wyatt, and we traveled around and did a ton of different stuff.
All around Missouri and Illinois, the Midwest, the Viking War Party, you being the littlest Viking, to me, this seemed kind of like the infancy of what we would know as Warhorse.
Oh, 100%. And we didn't just stick to the Midwest. I mean, we went down to Florida several times. We did Mexico. We did a lot of East Coast stuff. We did Beyond Wrestling and Jersey All Pro. We went out west one time for Sin Bodie's promotions out there. He ran Freak Show Wrestling, and that was an experience in itself. But nothing went wrong. It was just like he ran like, it was more like a sideshow, less like a wrestling show. It was very wild. But we did a lot of stuff with that, and yeah, just learned a lot about character stuff. And like you said, it was a very integral part of what I do now. It was definitely this in its infancy, is what I'm saying.
Locally, you really shook things up at St. Louis Anarchy. You and Wyatt and Herzog traveled everywhere, as you said. You were kind of like brothers in wrestling, wouldn't you say? Like,
oh, yeah.
Any good stories to share with those two?
One time we were coming back from Jersey All Pro, and we had to stop in North Carolina. So we drove out to New Jersey, wrestled, drove down to AML in North Carolina for the Hooligans. I had a van at the time, and we were coming back from AML, going through the mountains of West Virginia, so I guess the Appalachians, and we opened up the roll doors on the van because we had 2 roll doors. Opened it up, and me and Frank had already been like fighting the entire trip, arguing and shit. So Frank is 300 plus pounds at this point in time, and we're trying to throw each other out of the van while we're going through these mountains and stuff.
Well, that's totally safe.
Yeah. No. We were trying to throw each other out, and luckily nobody made it out of the van onto the side of the road or anything, or down a mountain. But yeah, at one point I was in the very back seat and he was in the middle seat. You know how they have like the captain's chairs in the middle? He like pulled the handle, went back and reclined back and started punching me, and I grabbed his arm and put him in an arm bar in the middle of the van. A
beautiful relationship.
Yeah. Well, to start that trip in particular, we had just been around each other too much, and we needed a break for like 2 weeks. But I took the road atlas in the back of the van, and I kept aggravating him. And eventually he said something, and I threw it up, and it hit him in the back of the head. And he was driving. So it hit him. He pulled over to the side of the road, slammed on the brakes, put it in park, jumped out. I jumped out, and we just started swinging at each other. I love that, man.
What?
I don't know if you could tell by that story or not.
No, I think we get it pretty good. I think that after the Viking War Party, the next big step in your evolution was kind of in another dimension, you might say, the dimension of the National Wrestling League.
Ugh. I don't mean as in like it was bad.
It was weird for you.
It was very weird.
In particular, you and Danny Adams teamed up as the Underground, and your name was Jackie Lee Bosch. What was going on here? Was this your idea?
People say that name was so stupid, and it makes me feel bad because that name was my idea. And then they were like, they wanted it to be like a Fight Club thing.
And we're talking about the owner, Major Baisden, right, at this point?
Yeah.
A multi-millionaire who owned this company, signed people to full-time and part-time contracts.
And like towards the beginning, and you can ask anyone, whether it's people that like them or didn't like them, it was off to a rocky start, but then once they moved out of St. Louis, it started to get good, and they made almost like a territory. But when they moved out of St. Louis, they stopped using several St. Louis people, including myself. But before then, it was me and Dan, and we were on this meeting with like a conference call, because they were conference calling everyone because they wanted to ask gimmick ideas, because I don't know, I think a big part of the wrestling creative process is you got to be able to do something that you want to do, or at least feel like you thought of, because if you're just crammed into a box, you're not going to do it that well.
Right. And they wanted to own these new names similar to WWE.
Yeah, and then they pitched a couple names, and I was like, well, why don't we just call it the Underground? Because they wanted it to be like Tyler Durden from Fight Club, but they wanted Dan to be the straightforward, like, you know, office 9-to-5 guy, and me be the gritty, dirty underbelly guy. And instead of it being the same person, it was two people. And I'm trying to convince Dan that wrestling is wrong because you shouldn't fight for money, which is weird and almost chivalrous in a way, but we were going to make it work. But we filmed a promo, and it started to actually get a little traction between what me and him did. And I remember going to other promotions like in Georgia and in Tennessee and stuff, and people asking me about what the NWL was doing because they saw that video. So I was like, oh man, maybe we got something here. And then I don't think Major really knew what direction to push things. I don't really know that anybody else could convince him what direction to push things. And he was doing the best with what he had and what he knew. And he's not a wrestling guy. He just likes wrestling. And there's a big difference between a wrestling guy and a guy who likes wrestling. Right. But eventually they moved out of St. Louis. Me and Dan still team here and there. Did a couple videos, but nothing. I don't know that it was necessarily influential to what I'm doing now, per se.
Did you guys have like an arc or something that was supposed to conclude?
So I sat down and I wrote out this whole thing where I wanted us to kidnap Major, because Major was always this in the public eye. Like when he would go out, he would do these PowerPoint presentations, and he wore a suit, and he would be really cheeky and nice and all that stuff, and he's fun. And I thought of our tag team as like the complete opposite of that, and real aggressive and dirty and gritty. So I wanted to kidnap him, of course, because that's just what you do. But I wanted to have like 3 or 4 weeks of something, because they were taping TV at the time. So I had like stuff to where one day it just reveals that we have him in a closet somewhere. And then the next week we have like where I'm trying to give him an ultimatum. And then I'm like threatening him with a hammer. And then off screen, I swing the hammer and it implies that I broke his leg or something, right? They don't show it on camera. And then eventually come to find out it looks like we stole a ring truck, and then we steal the tag belts, and the besties were the tag champs at the time, and they were going to find him. Come to find out, we'd never left the Casa Loma ballroom, and then it was going to pay off in like a tag match with us versus the besties for the tag titles, but we never actually win the tag titles. We just steal them.
Right. This whole thing is like a fever dream.
Yeah.
It's like it was all going to happen. None of it ever happened on several different levels.
The closest we came to it was we threw Buddy Shepard in the trunk of his own car.
Yes, outside the Casa Loma, right? Yes. I remember that, yeah.
I wanted to steal a ring truck and throw Major in the back of it. And then come to find out we were hiding in the Casa Loma the whole time. Yeah. Because like it's not like Major has a phone. He can't call anybody to tell them he's literally in the building that we're all in right now. Yeah. Like it was a ruse, you see.
So when the NWL came to an end in April of 2018, you were already done by then.
Yeah, I had been done. I don't think they liked how aggressive I was with like the ideas that they pitched, because
who are we talking? Matt Jackson here?
No, me and Matt always get along. I love Matt to death. I'll work for him any day of the week. I still do, actually. Mostly it's Fridays is the day of the week.
Currently runs St. Louis Anarchy, formerly NWL STL. Yeah.
But I never butted heads with him. I never really butted heads with Chris directly or Major, but they butchered that idea into what they thought it should be versus like what I pitched. So I was standing in the ring one day before we even started the show, and I was screaming and I was fucking yelling and I was cussing, and to the point that like I was yelling and pointing at people that were standing in the balcony, other workers, and I was like, and this is fucking bullshit too, and I'm yelling at them. And then Durden's...
Was this before the show, right?
This was before the show. Okay. Yeah. And then Durden is like, Jesus Christ, who pissed in your Cheerios? And I was like, that motherfucker over there. And I pointed at him, and I just like start over and I keep yelling. And they weren't happy with me because of that, because clearly you can't have somebody that's, that's clearly problematic. As right as I felt that I was to do that, it was still the wrong thing to do. Mm-hmm. Especially in a business environment.
So you weren't playing around?
No, I was not.
That was okay. I thought you were playing around.
No, I was very aggravated. And then a couple months after they left, or a couple weeks after St. Louis, they left St. Louis. We did an exchange on Twitter where I was doing like a work shoot thing where I acted like I was real mad at them and blah blah blah, and I was just tweeting things from the account they gave me until they muted it or whatever. And they were supposed to bring back St. Louis Anarchy, but their version of it. And they wanted me to be on it and all this stuff. And the final straw was they sent me a bunch of logos. And I was doing Warhorse Jake Parnell at the time. And I was like, these look like wine bottle logos. And then they never emailed me back after that. And that's the straw that broke the camel's back.
You were going to be on a wine bottle, huh?
Yeah,
You're part of Niles Planquet's wine collection.
Well, they wanted to make merch for me, and I'm like, I'm not going to sell anything that I wouldn't wear myself, and that's a good rule to have, because I don't think any of my merch sucks because of it. Mm-hmm. But that would have been completely... It just wouldn't have looked like anything that I would sell, and I was like, I'm not going to have it.
So the fever dream comes to an end.
Yep.
You're back on the indies, but we never really left the indies.
Yeah, I signed a part-time deal. This is going to be really weird for anyone listening that has no idea what the NWL is.
They signed people to contracts with the idea that we're going to get on TV and establish a territory system, first in Kansas City and in St. Louis. And then we're going to expand to like Austin and Des Moines.
It was sweet because the St. Louis shows were either Thursdays or Sundays.
Right.
And at one point, I did like 5 shows in 2 days because of it. Mm-hmm. And that was awesome. I mean, not a lot now, but then I was like, oh yeah, dude, this is living. I can just wrestle 97 times in a weekend and feel like I'm doing something.
For sure. So you return back to being Jake Parnell. I think the Viking War Party does more work for a while, but I gotta say, you were part of one of the most disturbing incidents I've ever seen in wrestling.
Oh, no. What did I do?
In January 2018.
Oh, yeah.
January 27th, I think. The day that will live forever. 01 USA in Central Illinois. You and Gary J for the junior heavyweight title of 01 USA. And it's a last man standing match. You guys are tearing the canvas up. The ring is just coming apart. And Gary fish hooks your cheek with the turnbuckle and throws you over the top.
It's this
rips your
little
lip.
scar right here. It's the doctor did too good of a job putting my face together.
I can't believe that it looks as good as it does.
I wish it looked worse. I do, because
you were showing it off on social media afterward.
Yeah, I mean it was a super graphic thing. I'm sad that I don't have like a giant scar on my face. It'd be cool, but now it's this tiny little thing that like I can tell when it's gonna rain now.
Did you know when you were
like it gets cold and numb?
It's really like extra sensitive.
Yeah.
When you got thrown out and that turnbuckle, look at the video at your own discretion. Tore your
I thought you were telling me to watch a video.
No. We don't have it
right now.
No, people again, go elsewhere after this interview. But
I don't recommend it.
Did you know immediately that something was wrong? Were you in shock? Was the adrenaline flowing? What was going through your head?
So I had a lump cut out of my mouth whenever I was in 3rd grade. And it was like in the general vicinity, right? It was like right up here. I thought the turnbuckle had hooked a scar and just reopened the scar. So I had no idea my face was hanging off. And finished the match. I get back in the ring. We start smacking each other again, all that good stuff. Get back to the back. I'm holding the towel on my face. I drop it. And everybody goes, oh, shit. And I look in the mirror and I go, oh, shit. And then we just buzz off to the hospital. And when the nurse came to check on me, she was like, "What seems to be the problem?" And I was like, "Well, I lost my smile." Yeah, she didn't
Flew
get
right
it.
over her.
Right over her house, so mad. But yeah.
How did Gary feel about that? He must have felt pretty bad.
I mean, yeah. It felt worse whenever I smacked him in the head with a chair right after. I was not happy that day.
Well, you got some good coverage out of it at least.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, that was like one of the first identifying things that I ever did, to where people would be like, "Wait, are you the Hook guy?" Mm-hmm. And then, it was a little bit of social media traction, not in the way that you'd want it, but I got it, so right. That was cool.
The pandemic affected everybody. I mean, there's no need to hyperanalyze it, of course, but I think what a lot of people, myself included, felt during the time off was, when this pandemic ends and these shows start back up, it's going to be a race to the top, okay? We can't lose time. And I think you, amongst so many, capitalized more than others with your social media presence. What was going through your head during the pandemic? I don't think you had a match for like 4 months.
I was more than that. It was a long gap. If it wasn't for like fan support, because I was unemployed at the time. So basically, end of 2019, going into 2020, I started getting a lot of momentum. And I feel like a big reason why I was able to climb to the top of indie wrestling along with several other guys is because nobody was really doing promos, and a lot of people had just got signed to, whether it was NXT, whether it was AEW, but there was like a giant hole to fill in indie wrestling. And now I feel like it's filled itself, and it's going to keep doing that, because indie wrestling's never going to go away. It's always going to be here in some way, shape, or form.
The amount of televised wrestling in late 2019 doubled.
Yes.
In like the span of a month.
Yep. So it left a lot of room for people like me to climb to the top, people like Danhausen, Effie, Nick Gage, all of us. Because really, before that, like, Gage was doing a couple things, but none of us were really like top of the crop yet. You know what I mean? So end of 2019, I got laid off from my glass cutting job, and I was like, that's fine, whatever. I make 3 times as much every weekend doing that than I do back here cutting my hands in a glass shop. So beginning of 2020, I had like 2 to 3 shows every weekend at least, up until the pandemic. And then, everybody thought it was going to be over in a month, and it wasn't. I had a ton of shows. I was showing you earlier, I had a ton of shows cancel on me that fell through. I had a UK trip that fell through that luckily we rebooked for 2022, so hopefully that goes good. But
this was, to me, the birth of the modern Warhorse.
I think so, because I didn't really have like the attitude down yet, or any of the just general movements and just phrases and all this stuff, to where now I feel 10 times more comfortable doing anything in gimmick versus like end of 2019, because I was still figuring it out. I had a phase where I was doing too much wrestling and not enough character stuff, and then it was flip-flopped where I did not enough character stuff and too much wrestling, or wait, not
still
yeah, I still have it flipped. I was doing too much character stuff and not enough wrestling, and then pandemic happened right whenever I started to get into my zone. I worked out pretty steady during the pandemic, but I still put on like the pandemic pounds, and then luckily my videos were still doing good and shit. Still independent wrestling champion at the time. And then people started talking, and they saw the Cody Rhodes Open Challenge, and all I did was like tweet pictures at Cody's things. I would just quote tweet it and put like a picture of me scratching my chin or something like that, and people just assumed that I was going to be on TV, so they just started retweeting it, and I got a ton of traction and a ton of followers. And then eventually I got a text from Cody, and he's like, "Hey, are you signed anywhere? Do you want to come do this?" And I was like, "Yes, I would. Let's rock and roll. Let's do it."
That was an amazing grassroots moment.
It sure was weird.
The build up.
Yeah.
And I was sitting home thinking, man, I wonder if they worked something out, because this thing is really rolling. Cody Rhodes was on Dynamite doing his TNT Championship Challenge. kind of like an open challenge kind of thing. And people were saying, face Warhorse. And I was just like, this is remarkable. This might be the in. And this was a time also where there's no one in the Jaguars amphitheater, the Daly's place. These shows are live some weeks, taped others. Mm-hmm. You were on live cable TV wrestling Cody Rhodes for the TNT Championship.
Yeah, no pressure.
Gotta be the biggest moment of your career, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
How did you feel about the match?
I liked it, and I asked so many other people what they thought. I asked Dustin Rhodes, I asked Matt Hardy, I asked Arn, I asked, FTR, both guys in FTR, I asked Dean Malenko, I asked everybody I could, I asked them what they thought, and it was all, it was a great first TV debut, good match, blah, blah, blah. And when I asked Dean Malenko, he was like, "It was a good match. It was a very good wrestling match." His voice was so deep. It's like there was a quarry in his throat.
It wasn't, and it was like, if you watch WWE, the local competitor, they get no offense in. You fought out of the figure 4 leg lock from Cody freaking
We
Rhodes.
had a commercial break.
Yeah, right.
It was a lot.
It was a good time.
He still stays in touch, and I'm still very grateful for everything he's helped me do, and he's a good guy. Tony Khan's a good guy. I have nothing bad to say. I thought I was gonna get offered something, but they also told me that it was not a tryout, and that the other two guys that had the opportunities that I had also did not get. It wasn't for Ricky Starks and for Eddie Kingston. It wasn't planned for them to get signed. Mm-hmm. They just did it, and I think there was a couple things that were not in my favor at the time. Whether it was something of how I looked, whether it was something in my performance, I don't know what that would be. I don't know, something was missing, and even looking back now, I don't think I was the complete package that I think they were right for not offering me something at that time. Even with all the momentum and even with the promos and all that stuff, I don't think I was ready.
I know you you wrestled at least one other match on Dark.
Yeah.
But coming off of that appearance on Dynamite and not getting signed, it sounds like you've come to terms with it now, but was there like a coming down period where like you've reached this ultimate high? Like, how do you cope with that?
It was definitely like, what the fuck, for like 2 months after that. Mostly, so there was a lot of personal stuff going on. At the very beginning of the pandemic, my stepdad was diagnosed with cancer. And I was also unemployed at the time, as you know, because I left the glass cutting job. So I had a lot of pressure, and bookings kept getting canceled. And just like the fanfare getting me on TV, if it wasn't for fans purchasing merchandise during that time, I don't know what I would have done to pay my bills. So I'm very grateful for all the Warhorse fans out there. I'm never not going to do everything I can for my fans and my people, because you guys have supported me more than I feel like I have any right to be supported. But those two things happened, along with me not getting signed to AEW. And then it wasn't until Jim Cornette's podcast came out about the match. And granted, I mean, Cornette's allowed to have his opinions because he's done so much for wrestling and like in the business and outside the business. And I mean, he's very validated perspective, but it's all the Cornette fans that don't have any like wrestling credentials that were just chomping at me and acting,
they just attacked you online.
Yeah, and acting like I fucked something up. And it's like, sorry, I didn't take the vice president of the second largest wrestling company in the world and drop him on his head a couple fucking times.
Yeah.
My bad. But I didn't get picked up. I had those people yelling at me. I had stepdad was terrible health. I was unemployed. I was not in a good place for like a good 8 or 9 months. And it really didn't start picking up again until the past 2 months, as far as me mentally. So it was a lot to work through. And even when shows started to pick back up, there was a point in time in May. I had just gotten married, and
May of this year.
Yeah,
2021.
And it was 2 weeks after we got back from the wedding. I thought about quitting wrestling because I had hardly any bookings. I was spending 3 nights a week helping my stepdad out making sure that he was taken care of. And like, it sucked because at least once a week he'd be like, so you heard anything from AEW? You heard this, you heard that? And it's just awful because, you know, it's like, no, I sure haven't.
If I hear something, I'll let you know.
Yeah, you would be the first person I would tell. I'm literally sitting next to you most nights of the week. I will tell you.
Yeah.
But I almost quit because I was at this show, CCW, right down the road.
Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
Yeah, so I'm sitting in the back. Mike Bennett's out there running a seminar, and I'm just kind of looking around, and I have my face paint on. I'm like, I need to record videos. I need to do something like that'll get me out of this funk. And I sat there for an hour in this empty room with like a bunch of garbage around me, and I couldn't think of anything. And I was like, man, maybe I just don't like this anymore, because I don't like the idea of cutting videos. I don't like the idea of like beating myself up and feeling like I'm not giving 100% to the fans who've supported me through all this crazy stuff. I don't feel like I'm shortchanging anyone, so maybe I should just quit. And then Mike Bennett came back from his seminar. I started talking to him a little bit, and then I don't know. It was just very easy to talk to Mike, and he made me feel real comfortable. And he was like, man, I think you're awesome. I think you're really good. And I was like, well, that's weird. I was just in the other room thinking about fucking leaving. Like, what do you mean? And he started going on and telling me how he's watched a ton of my stuff and he likes my work, and he's like scratching his head on like several things why a lot of pieces haven't moved into place for me. And he said, just wait it out, just do your thing, and like, I think you're really good, and keep working on your stuff. And if it wasn't for that conversation, I don't know if I would have like kept wrestling or not. Mm-hmm. So I have a lot to thank from like Mike Bennett, and then Davey Richards just moved back to town. And like, as far as like a technical wrestling machine, he very much is. And the fact that he likes my shit just blows my mind. So right. I'm very happy with that.
Team Ambition, right?
Team Ambition, baby, all day, baby.
I'm gonna tell you what, Davey Richards. We're here in St. Louis. I know we're going national. Don't freak out, Joey. But Team Ambition is the name of a training facility that you will see perhaps nationally coming up here soon, because Davey Richards is moving into a new facility. I know you're a part of it. And it's going to be the place to train to be a wrestler. And
if it flops, we're going to run it out for customs, and it's going to be called Cream Ambition.
Oh, no. And if you didn't get it, don't try.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Dude, it's not going to flop at all. This is going to be great.
No, it won't.
We have a giant, spacious facility. We have our ring coming soon. By the time this is out, I'm sure like it's going to be set up, and we're going to have the website set up too.
Yeah.
So I don't even know how to plug. I guess follow at Team Ambition STL on Twitter for all the updates. And then eventually we're going to let everybody know when classes start, what kind of classes we're going to be offering. Davey's going to do some stuff with like amateur wrestling and how to apply it to professional. I'm going to be doing promo classes. We're working on having like women's only ring nights. So that way, if you're a female worker and you just want to get in the ring and not worry about like shitty, stupid men, you can do that. I know how stupid shitty men can get. I've met a couple.
Hey, going back to the pandemic character development, which has persevered to today, the videos on Twitter, I love them, man. And the thing that sets yours apart, besides, of course, yelling at the camera and blowing my head apart, was the real life incorporations, I think, into the character. Like you said, you were unemployed. I remember watching a Warhorse unemployed video where Warhorse is looking for another line of work.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that.
Was that where I started working at the radio station?
Yes.
Yeah. So at the time I made that, everybody was complaining, you know, because a lot of wrestlers at that point in time, like I said, there was a lot of room at the top. So people like myself, Chris Dickinson, Tony Deppen, a lot of wrestlers were just making a living off of wrestling. And obviously that impacted our income. So I noticed a theme amongst a lot of indie wrestlers saying, shit, please buy support with merchandise. I have no other income coming in right now. And I was like, man, we're all going to have to get jobs soon, huh? What would it look like if Warhorse had to get a job? It's like, what's the worst job that Warhorse could get? Oh, yeah, if he had to be like a soft rock normal person, DJ.
Oh, that was so funny.
And it was great because I actually did my normal speaking voice on camera.
Yeah. You're like, oh, wow. You've been walking through the neighborhoods. You've been doing these promos everywhere. What do the neighbors think? I mean, because a lot of people, they do their promos in the car because they want to be private.
They hate my ass. It is hilarious. My next door neighbor to the left, he's Tanner. Tanner, if you're watching this, what's up, dude? He's actually nice and super supportive of stuff. Everybody else hates me. I need to open my cameos back up, but whenever I was consistently doing cameos, one night I had like 10 to do, right? But one was expiring that night. And this was like 2 or 3 in the morning. So I slipped out to the garage and I was like, okay, I'm not going to wake up my wife out here. I'll be fine. So I cut one cameo. And granted, they're only about 1 minute to 2 minutes. You know, I just like do the, hey, it's Warhorse, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, oh man, I could probably get like 3 more done and be fine. I ended up doing all the cameos and I was out there for like 45 minutes.
Wow.
And granted, like, I'm not talking how I'm talking now.
No.
I was full on yelling. And because I was unemployed, I was sleeping as late as I wanted to. So I wake up at 1 in the afternoon. My wife, Tammy, was working from home. And I come out. I'm like, hey, honey, how you doing? She goes, you want to tell me what the hell you were doing last night? I was like, what do you mean? She goes, we just had 4 neighbors on the front porch knocking and complaining that you were doing something at 3 a.m. You want to explain to me what that was? And I told her, I was cutting cameos, and she goes, I was on FaceTime with your brother and his wife, and I was so embarrassed.
It's gotta sound like a domestic dispute or something.
It was so funny. Yeah, so my neighbors hate my ass all the time. I go to gas stations in my face paint all the time. I don't even give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're not comfortable in your wrestling gear to go out in public and just do stuff, then maybe this isn't for you, or maybe you need to like reevaluate your gimmick or your character. Because like it has to be. So this is a weird segue into this. I feel like kayfabe is not dead. I feel like it's just different. I feel like people really want to buy what we are selling. People really want to believe that Warhorse is Warhorse and he's a person that can exist in the real world. And if I can't walk around with the face paint and nobody freaks out or anything, then that's not a person that can exist in the real world. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they'll look at me and they'll be like, oh, this guy's in a band, or oh, that guy might be a wrestler or something. But they're not going to like question like, what the fuck is this guy doing? You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, that guy's got shit on his face.
I couldn't agree more about what you just said about it not being dead. It's changed.
It's just different.
Yeah. Let the people enjoy it.
I hate when people are tweeting out on their social media and talking about like matches and spots that they called in the back, and like complaining about how much somebody wants to do, or just like inner workings, because that's not keeping kayfabe whatsoever. That's just like exposing that this is fake. And like I feel like online social media, I've done a good job of consistency as far as you can tell whenever it's Warhorse tweeting versus me tweeting. Granted, it helps like I just take the cap lock off, but 99.9% of my tweets are in character, in Warhorse, and that's what people want and they come to expect. It'd be weird if I started tweeting everything in lowercase. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Jake, usually around this time I ask everybody how to put themselves over on social media, but we're going to take it a step further. You're in a video game,
yeah,
Retromania, and it's not just a digital download. They're going to have arcade cabinets of this thing.
Oh, they already have it. They sent me one.
That's freaking awesome, man.
So I have been working with stuff with II Arcade, who makes the arcade cabinets. They're the best people. You got to watch these live streams, because they have Jong is the owner. I think he's coming back from Korea soon. I don't know. I keep in touch with him all the time. Mm-hmm. And he's just so outgoing and so nice, and just wants everybody to be happy. And like I took Dan the dad with us to go record a live stream. And he was just like, you're my family. You like Warhorse? I love Warhorse. You're my family. And he's just like hugging Dan and shit like that, giving us beers in the office. We're just sitting there playing video games, talking about stuff, and like doing their live streams. I love II Arcade so much. They actually had us do somewhat of a commercial for them and Retromania, to where I even took like a picture, like did the Bret Hart arcade cabinet, like Russian leg sweep thing. I did that. It's just us running around. I got to smack a arcade cabinet with a chair just to show the durability, and we were all kind of like, I don't know how this is going to hold up. And I was like, let's find out.
Hey, I don't know. I think most of us would kill to be in a video game with the Road Warriors. If you enjoy WrestleFest and Superstars, the old WWF arcade games, you'll love Retromania.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of fan support, I actually got in the game because of fan support. So
Amazing.
literally, there's nothing I would be able to do if it wasn't for my fans, and I'm so grateful for all of them.
All right, Jake, I warned you. Wrestling horror story, the baddest, the maddest, the saddest from in the ring, the locker room, or the road. What do you have for us?
Man, now
Uh-oh. Don't tell me, Jake, that you suddenly have clammed up and there's
I'm
no
not
more
clammed
horror
up.
stories.
There's definitely horror stories. So like my first road trip, and it wasn't even like a road trip. This is like 3 hours from the house, but for me, this is forever. You know, like when you're first starting out, 3 hours seems like a lot. We drove out to just some spot in Illinois for UWC, and we stayed at this guy's house. And we walk in, but it's not a house, it's a trailer, which is already off to a good start. But we look and we see that like his daughter's bed is in the living room, and because it's only a 1-bedroom house, so there's no living room, it's just daughter's room and then his room, and then like, yeah. So he's like, oh, you guys can just sleep in my daughter's bed. I made her go stay at mom's house tonight. And I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. And then I get up in the middle of the night to go use the bathroom, and I almost fall through the floor. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I look, and there's a giant hole in the floor going into the
trailer.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, you got to walk through my bedroom to get to it. And I was like, okay. And I walk through. There's a bunch of cups and shit all over the floor. And I don't know if that's like a horror story, but it was awful.
Man, that's a coming-of-age tale.
Yeah.
The promoter's trailer. Tremendous.
It was gross.
Jake, I know you're JP Warhorse across social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tremendous. Anything else that people need to know?
You guys rule ass, and hopefully you didn't mind me talking in my normal voice for a little bit. It's after a couple minutes of doing the Warhorse raspy voice, I tend to lose it. I've gotten a lot better with it over the past few months, but thanks for just listening to my stupid ass normal voice.
No, it was a pleasure. I kind of imagined you didn't want to talk like that for a half hour.
Oh, no. I mean, I could.
No.
Oh, I want to plug Team Ambition stuff, because we have a lot of great things coming out. Myself, Davey Richards, Mike Outlaw, Camaro Jackson, we're all going to be head trainers at the new facility. Details are coming soon. Like I said, follow at Team Ambition STL on Twitter, at Team Ambition STL on Instagram, and then should be Team Ambition Pro Wrestling Academy on Facebook. And then we'll have all the details and info for beginners, advanced, and if you just want to stop in and roll around, we'll have drop-in fees, and we're going to have weights. We're going to have a couple grappling mats. We're going to have turf, so that way you can do sled pulls and all that goofy shit. That's really Davey's thing. I'm not the sled guy. I just want to stand there and do curls.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Hey, it'll have it all.
We have a little bit of everything for a little bit of everybody, so feel free to drop in and see what we're all about.
Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at Grandel Wrestle and Instagram at Grandel Wrestling. I'm on Twitter as well at the Ben Simon. Today's show was engineered by Key Henry, and the producer, as always, is Joey O'Farrell. We're at Midcoast Media, Midcoast Studios, Midtown St. Louis. Hit up Chris Denman. He's the owner. If you'd like to shoot your podcast or show here in the studio, great facilities and a great time. Okay, so until next time, for the Grandel Wrestling Podcast, this is Ben Simon. Jake, it's been a pleasure, my friend.
Oh, God, I'm messing the mic up.
We finally got him. We finally got him.
We did it. I knew we could do it, baby.
Yes. All right. Ben Simon for Jake
Hold on.
Cardell.
Wait.
Oh,
hold
come
on.
Oh, my gosh. You messed up my out.
I know. It's fine. It's funny that way. I almost didn't make it today.
Well, I know it was a close call,
It was so close. So I did a lot of bending over backwards and pulling strings to be here today. So I hope everybody liked this shit. It was good shit.
So long
So long.
from the Show Me State.